Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. We've got day 2 of the Senior Bowl to talk about, but we might have the idea locked down of who's going to be the Steelers defensive coordinator. We'll talk about Patrick Graham here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, joined today by Nick Farabaugh. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things in the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day because we're your team every day. A reminder, the Locked On Steelers podcast is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcasting network in the world. And Thursdays are always crossover Thursdays, which are presented by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. As I said before, we're joined by the man himself, Nick Farabaugh. He's joining me. We're actually doing something brand new here, Nick. I've never done this. 2 people on a set at the same time. We got our own mics here. Thank you for doing this. We're staying together here in Mobile, Alabama for the Senior Bowl. We'll get to day 2 of the Senior Bowl as it was Wednesday. But Nick, happy to be on with you here.
This is cool, but now here's a guy. Here's a guy. I'm telling you, here's a guy in Chris Carter. that has this guy Farabaugh on the show all the time. And we are live in Mobile, Alabama. I mean, what a great football city this is, Chris.
I hate you so much. We talked about doing the Chris Collinsworth slide. It was just we're having so much fun with this. But thank you. Please pardon our dust. Normally we'd be on different screens, but Wi-Fi in Mobile is not always the best. So we operate. But I wanted to get Nick on because this guy, y'all know he knows ball. That's why I love to bring him on this show. And Nick, I wanted to talk to you about the guy that everyone's talking about. It's going to be the new Steelers defensive coordinator, Patrick Graham. Most recently defensive coordinator with the Raiders. His numbers aren't the greatest there. He had 25th overall in scoring in back-to-back years. They were 3 seasons ago. But when I talk to you, when I talk to people else, and I started doing more research as we're at the Senior Bowl, trying to not freeze while we're trying to also evaluate candidates and trying to do a balance a million things. I'm reading more and good things about this guy and what he brings to the table. Tell people what are the good things that Patrick Graham can do that they might not see when they do a precursory search of his stats.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about the Raiders is just they've had no talent. It's Max Crosby and a bunch of guys.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it really has been. I think the thing about Patrick Graham is there is no Patrick Graham scheme. He does what he thinks is best. He's run a 4-3, he's run cover 3, he's run cover 2. He's run, a cover 1 heavy scheme. He's done all these different things. And when he had real talent in 2023, it was the best defense the Raiders have had literally over the last 2 decades. I mean, they were top 10 in success rate, EPA per play, DVOA, all these. And they were, I believe, that year the 26th. They had the 26th least spending on defense. So they were not a highly paid defense at all that year. When he gets talent defensively, I think things are going to really take a step up because he's done more with less. And I think that's what's really attractive about Patrick Graham is this is going to be the most talented defense he's ever worked with. And I think that's really what it looks like. So now, what scheme are they going to run? That's going to be the question because Patrick Graham's scheme is really versatile. I mean, they can do different things. Last year, he ran Pete Carroll's cover 3 scheme. I don't think we're going to see the Pete Carroll scheme. I think we're going to see more of the 2 high.
Right.
I like what he does. He runs a lot of cool pressures. These things called sim pressures, which just it is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Simulated pressure.
Right.
So it's a little later in the play. It changes the picture. I think, you think about the Steelers personnel with guys like PQ and Sean Elliott, and guys like that. I think these are really cool fronts that they can use. Max Crosby moved all around the line of scrimmage. So even if TJ Watt maybe doesn't want to do that, I can see, Nick Herbig and Alex Highsmith going all around the place, getting matchups. It's just a really cool hire to me for a guy that while the results haven't been there, I think there's a lot of other things around him that maybe haven't worked.
One thing I found when I was looking for quotes and just looking for things that he said when he's talked about it, one thing he said, he's like, I don't have a scheme. My scheme is about my players. And to me, that is the most important part of if Patrick Graham's followed through and he is definitely the defensive coordinator hire, it's all locked down. if he can come in and say, all right, let's build this system for who we got, not just for who the Steelers have that everyone knows about, TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, if they're both still around at the next season, but there is a young nucleus here of defenders that are playing really well. And I think that's the biggest thing that I was concerned about with this coaching staff changes and how are they going to continue to cultivate the guys that have gotten better. And we're talking about really good players over this past season, like Joey Porter Jr., who still has not allowed a single touchdown reception since he's been a starter. The only touchdown he's allowed, according to Pro Football Focus, was when he was still a backup in his rookie season. Guys like Derek Harmon, who had a phenomenal rookie season, Y.A. Black, who had a solid year, Nick Herbig, Jack Sawyer, who had a good rookie year. We talked about Highsmith and Watt, but even Keanu Benton, Patrick Queen, Peyton Wilson, all these guys, Deshaun Elliott, you brought up. And then the question, who do they keep? James Pierre? Do they keep Asante Samuel? There's a lot of pieces that Graham would inherit here in Pittsburgh, and I think that's what's could be exciting is if this is a really good defensive mind who just hasn't had the chess pieces to work with. He's been working with pawns, and now you're giving him some knights, some bishops, some queens, some rooks. I play way too much Duolingo chess, but you're giving him more to work with, and that could be exciting.
Yeah, to me, Graham is is just the type of hire you make when you're the Steelers and you want to chase a ceiling defensively, because I think he could be a guy. He's a great floor raiser. We have seen.
You're saying here's a guy.
Here's a guy, that I think could fit what they do really well, and I like the personnel fit. With that, I think he's going to look at what they did really well last year, in split safety looks and things like that, and sim pressures and just some really cool things that they can add. And you talk to anyone around the league about him, I mean, extremely, extremely high quality character. Extremely intelligent. This guy is thought of extremely highly. I mean, he was getting head coaching interviews. This is somebody that people around the league really respect. Patrick Graham is someone that other teams would love to have on their staff. You know what I mean? And I think that to me is something that's really attractive about Patrick Graham. So I think, you're going to look at the initial stats at kind of, the yards per game, some points per games, and it's not always great. And I understand that. But look at the back seven talent. Look at some of the linebacker talent he's worked with. Look at some of the interior defensive line talent he's worked with. And the one thing I will say, there's three things that Patrick Graham, no matter the scheme he runs, does emphasize. First of all, stop the run. That's the first thing, and that's not a surprise. 2, limit explosive plays. 3, violence. I think that's the three things he's always preached. Last year, even with a bad defense, he did those. He was, I believe, Matt Williamson tweeted out some stats. They were second in the league in explosive play rate allowed. 4.3%. That's really good. They were, I believe, second in yards before contact. So the running backs, if they did break it, it was tackling and stuff of that nature. So they didn't allow teams to really get out the gate. And so the explosives didn't come. And so to me, Graham's a guy that it sometimes does struggle on third down. That's my one concern here. I think they had basically the same third down defense the Steelers had. Steelers were more talented, of course, but that is something I think to keep an eye on. It's just not without concern, but I really like Patrick Graham. People might look at it as uninspiring on the surface, but I think this hire is going to be a really good one.
We're going to talk about this next question more in depth at some point, but so I want to get a quick answer for you because we've talked about this off camera. Should the Steelers change to a 4-3 defense? Because a lot of people bring this up. The point that I'm saying and bringing this as a rhetorical question is there's nothing wrong with their 3-4 defense, their 3-4 base. That's not the problem that they're facing right now. But explain to people, do you anticipate if there's going to be changes? What do you anticipate Graham bringing as changes, and why necessarily 3-4 to 4-3 isn't necessarily an answer?
I think he's going to modernize the blitz schemes a little bit.
Okay.
We talk about sim pressures. The Steelers didn't have a ton of those. They're kind of blitz pickups and switches were dropping defensive linemen and doing different things. And sure, you can do stuff like that with sim pressures and stuff like that. But he does a lot of cool stuff up front. I think they'll be a little more aggressive with coverage. I think that they will, run more cover zero. That's something that Graham has used before. To me, 4-3, man, I do think the Steelers actually have some horses that they could run a 4-3. They ran a base 4-3 look last year when, they had Harrison, Queen, and Wilson all on the field at the same time. But I don't think that switching to a 4-3 is some pariah big thing. There's people, that really reacted negatively to when Mike McCarthy said that they're going to keep the 3-4.
Yeah.
as if the 3-4 is outdated.
Yeah,
the 3-4 is not outdated.
Right.
And besides, so much of NFL football now is nickel, dime.
Yep.
I will say this: the Steelers are going to be in much more sub-package football with Patrick Graham. He runs dime a lot. He runs big nickel.
Okay.
So they might need another DB that fits a kind of a big nickel mold, or somebody. Because, I mean, you could even, bring Kyle Duggar back and have him fill that role. That's the role he played in New England.
Okay.
So that's something to think about. Mike Vrabel's scheme is not too dissimilar from some of the stuff that Patrick Graham has run. So I think that they need to look at some safety diversification in terms of that. They also really need, in my opinion, a nickel that can really hoss against the run. So I liked what Brandon Echols did. But, if they can find somebody that's a hoss on the inside and maybe give Echols some help, play outside or just be a really good depth piece, I think there's things to look at there since he's on a 2-year deal. So there's going to be some changes here, but they're going to play a lot more in sub-package football.
I like the ideas there. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we got more information on other assistants who will be sticking around, who those were, what we think of them sticking around, and maybe if others are or aren't. We'll talk about that next year on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter and Nick Farabaugh, stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, remind you this show is brought to you by Rocket Money. Let's be real. Managing your finances can feel overwhelming between subscriptions you forgot about, bills that keep going up, and trying to figure out where all your money actually goes each month. It's easy to feel like you're losing control. And who has time to track every transaction or hunt down hidden fees? That's where Rocket Money comes in, the personal finance app that helps you take control. It finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. I love how it tracks all my subscriptions and lets me cancel them right in the app with just a few taps. No more hunting down customer service numbers. The automatic transactions categorization is a game changer. I can finally see where my money is actually going each month. You can set budgets and goals, get personalized insights, and receive real-time alerts for large transactions, upcoming bills, and low balances. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster at rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. We're also brought to you by TurboTax. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life this year. TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax Full Service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert start to finish without the stress or guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. They handle everything from W-2 to self-employed forms and work to get you every deduction. You can upload your documents, go about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver and gives real peace of mind to knowing an expert is handling your taxes. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit turbotax.com/local to book your appointment today only at TurboTax. We're back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, here from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, here with Nick Farabaugh, PennLive.com. Again, pardon our dust. This is our first time doing this sort of dual set situation where we're both on the set at the same time and we have our own spaces, but we're staying in the same place here in Mobile. And it's, the Wi-Fi isn't always the best. So, please forgive us if there's some audio hiccups we're learning as we go through today, like me not clicking off the TurboTax banner there. There we go. So let's move forward, Nick. 3 more things that we learned. My colleague Jerry Dulac reporting this, other people reporting this as well. The Steelers are at least retaining 3 coaches from the previous staff that we know of right now. Scott McCurley, inside linebacker coach, Tom Arth, quarterbacks coach, and Gerald Alexander, the DBs coach. We don't know for sure if this is that's it. If that's all that's being retained. We just know those guys right now. But what is your reaction to seeing those 3 names being the first 3 names that are kept? We actually bumped into Carl Dunbar at the Senior Bowl, and it's been reported he's not going to be back as the defensive line coach.
Yeah, I'm assuming he's going to find quick work somewhere.
Yeah.
It's interesting because Mike McCarthy talked about having young and hungry dudes, and I think Gerald's relatively young. He's a fast rising guy. Tom Arth, same way. He's
Mhm.
you know, a guy that's kind of been on the rise. I'm not surprised though, you know, those three guys have connections that make sense, right? McCurley was under McCarthy forever. Tom Arth was coached by Mike McCarthy. And then Gerald was underneath Patrick Graham, actually, you know, which is kind of interesting. So there's connections there.
Mhm.
And I think, you know, those guys, I think Gerald Alexander did a very good job.
I
with
thought
the
so
defensive
too.
backs last year. He's a good coach. I
Mhm.
firmly believe that. Tom Arth, you know, I think the book is to be written there. I'm not sure how much we can really read into 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers'
Yeah.
play. You know, that's more about how Will Howard looks and all those guys. Scott McCurley, you know, first year, I mean, Peyton Wilson arguably maybe took a step back. Maybe not a great start. And I don't feel like his resume has been sterling in that area. So a little less enthused about that one, but also, you know, it is what it is. He probably has 1 year left on his contract.
Yeah.
And the two, do they extend these guys? I don't know. But you might have another kind of revisiting of these guys next year to see where things are at. But yeah, I'm not shocked. I think there are others that I would like to keep. I firmly would like to keep Eddie Faulkner on the staff.
Same.
And I would like to see them keep Denzel Martin.
Mhm.
You know,
Two really important guys for the culture
I agree.
that's going on.
I agree. So, you know, those are two guys I think that you could keep. But we'll see if they do or if he's going to bring in new fresh blood.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing here is that the Steelers need to inject culture that's with Mike McCarthy. They need to have those guys there. So absolutely getting new people in. But if the people who do stay understand that they're part of something new and starting to the growing and tearing things over, I think that's going to be important. Let's talk about Gerald Alexander because he's a guy who worked under Grady Brown, you know, as the assistant DBs coach, went to the Raiders for a year, came right back. When that position was open, they became the DB's coach. This is a guy that we talked about. Here's a guy that we talked about when they brought him back. That we were both excited to see that, and then when we saw him just getting the chance to basically run the DBs in practice, the attention to detail, the energy he brought, it gave like future vibes that this guy could be a defensive coordinator someday with the way that he's gotten. And then, you know, the results that you saw him get out of Joey Porter Jr. Joey Porter Jr. had been not allowing touchdowns, but now that passer rating allowed has gone down. The penalties have gone down. The consistency's been there a lot more for them. And now he's to a point where teams were avoiding Joey Porter Jr. You saw James Pierre step up and have a really good year. His best year of his career, in my opinion. Asante Samuel plugged in and was very helpful when they got him off the street. And so you saw, and then makeshifts that had to happen in the secondary. Jalen Ramsey was brought in to be a stud corner on the outside, or in the slot, and then he was moved back to safety. They had so many changes, and that secondary stayed together. And I think Alexander should get credit for that.
He did. They did a lot of different piece moving around in that secondary. You know, the safety position's interesting when you look at his resume because I did not think the safety play last year was up to snuff.
I agree.
But he also, you know, when we saw him go through Indy every day, he was with the corners. So, you know, that was secondary coach Anthony Midget who went back to the college ranks. So they will need a new assistant DBs coach to help Gerald out. I do wonder if, for Gerald's sake, if it would be better to just make him the corners coach.
Interesting.
I think they might be better off, honestly. A lot of teams do this. You know, you see some teams like Dallas. You see some teams like LA, or at least LA did in the past. I don't know if they still do, but you see some teams specializing their secondary to safeties, corners. There's even some teams that have just a coach strictly for nickels. I don't think they'll go that far, but I think that it might help Gerald in that way. You know, he is a commander in the secondary, but he coached up those cornerbacks, man. I mean, Joey had the best year of his career. Brandon Eccles stepped in the slot mid-year. You know, Asante, as you mentioned, James Pierre has a career year. What he did at a cornerback after the departing of Darius Slay was seriously impressive. So to me, if I were Mike McCarthy and I was building out a staff, I'd probably look for a strictly safeties coach and then make Gerald the corners coach.
That'd be really interesting because safeties is also a position that I'm looking at here at the Senior Bowl. We'll get to our Senior Bowl thoughts because both of us have been here, we've been checking things out. But I can get behind that. The idea that, you know, Joe Alexander making the corners coach because he got really good cornerback production. It's funny because I think he was the safeties coach for the Raiders.
Safeties coach for the Raiders. I do wonder. I mean, if you wanted to, and you know, you wanted to make sure Gerald didn't feel slighted by that, I'm totally fine giving Gerald the defensive pass game coordinator title.
Ooh, that'd be interesting.
Now, I don't know if McCarthy's going to do pass game coordinator, run game coordinator.
Right.
He has at times in the past, offensively and defensively, he has done it. He didn't do it offensively in Dallas as much. He did do it defensively. We'll see. It's kind of become the standard that there are a defensive and an offensive pass game coordinator now, if not just to bump up pay raises, give guys titles and stuff like that. So I wouldn't mind giving Gerald Alexander that title at all. I think he's worthy of it. He's a guy that's legitimately viewed as, a potential future defensive coordinator. So I think he'd be worthy of that. I think he earned it. I mean, they didn't have as many communication issues once they finally plugged it for as many pieces as they had moving around. So yeah, I think that's, really important. And I do think, so far the staff at least is fine. I'm looking for younger blood. I think that's something, there's a few other reported guys that maybe are coming in. I think Adam Henry, I believe, is the other one, the wide receivers coach from the Bills. He's been around for a while. And James Campen could be coming in as O-line coach. Those guys are veteran coaches, but I would like some young blood coming in. And so I think that's something to also consider.
I think the Steelers are going to have to consider every approach here as far as, bringing young guys and experienced guys in, because also sometimes young guys with young players don't always resonate. Sometimes you need the older coach. Like, Mike Munchak was a well-experienced guy, a former head coach who came in and then really revved up that mid-2010s offensive line the Steelers had. So, like, sometimes it's just knowing who generates or is going to resonate the best with different guys there. But I do think that's interesting too, because probably Zach Azzani's probably not going to be back. Kind of saw that one coming. Pat Meyer was the one I was like, is there a chance, considering the offensive line took a step forward? But again, I get it. Mike McCarthy, especially we know he's going to be calling the plays. He made that part of his opening press conference in saying that, every year that he's been, and I brought this up more than a couple of times now, every year that he's been a head coach, he's had a franchise quarterback established, ready to go, or a guy like when Aaron Rodgers was young, that dude's going to be a bad man. And there's not that on the Steelers roster right now. Will Howard, a lot of people really believe in him, but he's a 6th-round pick. He didn't even get a chance to play last year because he was hurt. So we still have to see what he looks like. You got Mason Rudolph. Maybe you bring back Aaron Rodgers. Maybe you go get Malik Willis. Who knows? But there's not an established Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, Dak Prescott here. And so the thing that I think he does inherit, though, is an offensive line that's young, that's talented, and took serious steps forward. And if he can mold them into being an elite run blocking, pass protecting unit that does consistently control the line of scrimmage, and he gets his offensive line coach to help in that could be a huge staple and plus for what Mike McCarthy brings to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, he's 19-24 without those guys. He even, with Cooper Rush, I think he was 4-1 in 2020 and then 4-4. I don't think the bottom's falling out with Mike McCarthy. This roster's too talented too.
I agree. They're building for something.
Right, they're building for something. And to me, when I say young blood, they talked up throughout the presser and Art Rooney's comments to, Jerry Dulac and Bob Labriola, quarterback development. Well, okay, you have Arth and McCarthy. I wouldn't, the OC. What route do you go with the OC? Do you make the OC more run-centric, or do you make the OC another quarterback-centric guy? Because this is, the two, I think, hot names right now, at least that people are throwing around for OC, is Scott Tolzien and then Luda Wells. Yeah. Luda Wells is a tight ends coach that I think would help more so in the run game aspect.
Right.
Tolzien is a quarterback's coach, and that will just work with Tyler Shugg.
He's also one of those backup quarterbacks that Mike McCarthy used to coach.
Correct. And so it's just kind of interesting. Do you want 3 guys that are on the quarterback trail, or do you want someone else that's run game centric? You have, if Campen does come, you're going to have a veteran offensive line coach that's been there, done that for nearly 2 decades. And so you maybe can afford to go with another quarterback background if you wanted to spice up the passing game a little bit. That's I think going to be an interesting hire, because people look at the OC under a head coach that's calling plays and thinks they're useless. That guy is like the underlying. That guy watches film, sets out some of the plays, has say in it. It depends on the OC head coach combo, but that hire I think is kind of sneakily a little more important than people think, because they can go different directions.
I agree. We talked about that a bit in yesterday's show. We're going to take a quick break. We come back. We were here for day 2 of the Senior Bowl. We saw some highlights. We saw some big plays. I want to get Nick's thoughts. I'll give you some of my thoughts on who's standing out here at the Senior Bowl at this early stage of the NFL draft process. Keep it here with the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter and Nick Farabaugh. Stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, remind you this show is also brought to you by Indeed. If you've ever hired someone who looked good on paper but wasn't the right fit, you know how important that is. When you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed sponsored jobs. If you're hiring, Indeed has all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen online on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs puts your job at the top of the page and helps you reach the right candidates faster. If I needed to hire someone for this show, I go straight to Indeed, be very specific about what I need, real experience, not just a resume buzzword. Sponsored jobs boost, post the people who are the best match for your role, and that makes a real difference. Spend more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with less stress, less time, and more results using Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job the premium placement it deserves at Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. We're also brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing like being in an NBA arena, the crowd, the energy, the moment. Getting tickets, though, that part hasn't always been so simple. That's why Game Time has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast. Without the hassle, it puts the advantage back where it belongs with the fans. Pull up the Game Time app, pick an upcoming NBA game, and have tickets locked in within minutes. You'll love seeing the all-in price up front, no surprise fees at checkout. The Game Time app lets you see the view from your seat before you select it, giving you full control. Zone Deal is a great feature that helps you save money while finding great seats. You pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you save even more. Great last-minute options, too, with NBA tickets showing up at solid prices. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account. Use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions apply. Again, download the Game Time app, make an account. Use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today and get back to being there live. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, Chris Carter from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette here with Nick Farabaugh again doing our dual set thing for the first time here in the Locked On Steelers podcast. Nick, we watched day 2 of Senior Bowl practices, and there was a few standouts there, man. I was really impressed by some of the guys. We also got to talk to a lot of the players in the breakfast in the morning that we had on Wednesday. Got to bounce around, get to talk to guys. I want to talk about one big name that I've had my eye on since I saw him be part of the Senior Bowl roster, and a guy that I think had a really good day. Malachi Fields, Notre Dame wide receiver, caught a 50-yard bomb where he caught it from Taylor Green, had to track it down over the shoulder, showing his length and his size. But I think we both got a chance to talk to him. I was genuinely impressed by how composed he was, how the level of thought he was able to go through with some of my questions. And I'm impressed by how he wins, not just on deep balls, but he's gotten so much better throughout his career at winning with the routes, creating separation, and knowing how to do that because he was a quarterback in high school, went to Virginia for 4 years, transferred to Notre Dame, and looks like a really complete receiver, maybe the most complete receiver at this Senior Bowl.
He's a big-bodied guy. There's really not anyone else.
6'4".
Him and Jacoby Lane are kind of the two big-bodied, true types of receivers, and I think Fields is the bigger of the two and probably has more wiggle, which is interesting to me.
He's also thicker, right?
Right. I mean, I came into this event thinking Jacoby Lane was maybe going to be the best receiver here. And while I think Jacoby Lane has had a good day, I think Fields had a better day.
I think so too.
I think he uses his size better. I think he knows how to play big. He's not a big guy that plays small. That's always a pet peeve of mine. When you get a big guy, play big, man, and he does. He's always physical in the blocking drills. He looked like he was getting into it in the special teams period. I always like that. I mean, we like special teams here. You got to play special teams to make rosters. So yeah, man, I thought Fields had a really good day. There are some wide receivers here that are interesting to me. Another big-bodied guy is a little bit of a different archetype. Josh Cameron out of Baylor. I think he might be having like the best Senior Bowl week. I think Malachi Fields is the best receiver, but Cameron is just lights. He's winning every combat catch. He's very interesting. He's strong.
Yeah.
He's got this wide build, but he's not stiff. He is like really a unit to bring down at the top of the catch point. He just creates separation through physicality. There is a lot of, big slot potential there with him. He's fast. He's got great hands. I mean, there are sometimes I don't think he naturally creates elite separation all the time. Man, he can go up and just nab it out of the air. I mean, you're talking about if you want to take a day 3 guy that's really fun, he's someone that's kind of flown under the radar. I think Cincinnati's Cyrus Jones to me. We're talking about a guy, that isn't flashy, but every time I look at him, he's open. I think he's flying under the radar. I also really like in this guy. I mean, I didn't know who he was before we came here. Tyron Montgomery.
Oh yeah,
John Carroll.
Yeah,
this guy, good. Man. This guy put up 1,500 yards last year at John Carroll. He has a crazy story. I talked with him today, and he just gave his story in 3 minutes. And I mean, we're talking about a guy that didn't play football until 2.5 years ago. He literally got recruited off flag football film. You know what I mean? He was a hooper, so his footwork is like he crosses guys over. I was telling Carter this off camera. There's some movements there that like remind me of Deontay Johnson and his routes and how he moves. But he goes up and gets the football. He's got good hands. He's definitely raw. Like you can definitely tell it. But he's electric in space. Like man, he's a fun player. I don't really know that he's going to be an immediate day 1 impact guy. But you bring him in. I think you're getting a guy that, could be a good returner. I think you're getting somebody that has a lot of growth potential. It's a little bit on the older side because he started so late, but we're talking about a guy that has barely played football. Even if he doesn't make your roster, this is the ideal practice squatter that you can develop that can maybe become something. Really fun player, man. He's come out of nowhere. He's had a good week.
I think so, too. Another guy that I wrote about for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, you can check out my work at post-gazette.com. I thought Colton Hood had a really good day. In fact, he was the first person I saw Josh Cameron get, and I was just like, oh my, Colton Hood got beat there on a deep ball. What happened there? But then he rebounded, had a really good practice after that on Tuesday, and then Wednesday, yesterday, I thought he was locking people down. He was going up against everybody. He was doing his hood celebration where he does like that. I really like that. That is pretty cool. And I got a chance to talk to him after practice. And again, a humble guy that said, "Hey, I had to knock the rust off. I haven't played since just after Thanksgiving, but I'm here. I love my press man corner work." This is also a guy. Here's a guy that a lot of people have talked about being a first round pick, even a high first round pick. And I've been impressed by how he's done. I want to see more time. I don't think we can see him play against Malachi Fields because they're on different teams. So we won't see it until the Senior Bowl itself. But I would love to see those two guys go at it in a phone booth for 4 or 5 reps.
Yeah, he's fun, man. I think he's going to be a first rounder when all things said and done. I think the best player here is LJ Hunter. I really do. I mean, we're talking about an absolute unit of defensive attack. He wrecked everything.
He did.
Him and TJ Parker wrecked shop on that team. It was one of the two in the backfield. Literally every play, I was like, these guys are really, really good. In terms of DBs, my favorite DB of the day, Bud Clark, safety from TCU. I talked to him, man. I asked him, his playing mentality. And he said that he wakes up with his hair on fire and he'll burn the house down. I like that. The energy I got from him, if you guys have ever listened to a Deshaun Elliott interview, it can go off the rails fairly quickly. Yeah, I got the same vibes from Bud Clark, but in a good way. He's a tone setter. He's got a real. I think he's rambunctious. I think that's the right way to say it. But the energy carries to the field, man. He was everywhere today. He can play in the slot. He can play up an overhang. He can play it free. He can play in the box. He models his game after Derwin James because he says I can play.
Good person to model after,
and he did. I mean, they played him all over the place. So. He's a really fun player. Honestly, I think would be someone I would target in the middle rounds. This is a good safety crop here. Skylar Thomas as well from Oregon State. Not a guy I had on my radar.
Went up and got an interception.
Yeah, he got an interception today. I thought he was really solid. And then there's just a group of big, massive nose tackles here. There's 6 of them, and they're all good. The kid from South Carolina, his name's escaping me right now. He's good. The Florida State kid that came in today for the first time. Daryl Jackson, he's good. Zane Durant from Penn State, not necessarily just a nose, but a guy that has eaten up blocks.
He's had 2 good days.
Right, and then you have LJ Hunter who can play inside out. Yeah. And then the Oklahoma kid, Hauser, right?
Yeah, Grayton Hall.
Yeah, Grayton Hall. That's correct.
But him and Tim Keenan, the Alabama kid, both of those guys, I think that's the cool thing about this defensive line class is that if the Steelers want to go get a late day 2, early day 3 type of guy there to further bolster the trenches on the defense, you could get a big guy, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
Lee Hunter's going to be long gone by then. But like if a Tim Keenan or a Grayson Holden, they're smaller, but they're agile. They're quick. I talked to Grayson Holden. He said, my goal is to get my hands on you and get my 2 feet across the line, and then it's over. When I talked to Tim Keenan, he talked about, he was like, I asked him about, hey, you're 6'2", you're not the typical 6'5", 6'6" type defensive lineman, like Derek Harmon, like Y.A. Black. And he said, hey man, he's like, I love David versus Goliath, and I've been slaying giants all my life. And I was like, that's a line right there. That's a bar. And I was just like, look at this guy. And then he made really good plays today. We're recording this on Wednesday. So I'm impressed by several different positions, and also positions the Steelers could use. Safety, D tackle still, wide receiver. They need to get 2 wide receivers in this draft class unless they make a big move in free agency. But Nick, it's been a very exciting Senior Bowl.
It has. There's some guys, really for me, most of these guys I'm watching for the first time just because with the coaching search, I don't have time to watch much tape.
It's so tough.
And so, I've been kind of getting acclimated to these guys, and there's a few fun groups there. The one group I will not call fun is the quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Not that that's unexpected. I felt, Sawyer Robertson has not had a bad week. Cole Payton's had some flashes here. But Taylor Green,
it's rough.
Nussmeier has been fine. I don't think he's been outright bad, but he hasn't had anything crazy. Diego Pavia looks like a 5'9" quarterback.
Yeah.
And so,
there's obvious limitations to this group.
And Altmaier looks like a guy that could probably be a backup. But the quarterback room hasn't been that great. I will say another strong group. I think there's some good guards here.
Oh, yeah.
Jennings Dunker. I know, he's a tackle guard. I think he's better at guard. There's a few others
Rutledge.
here. Yeah, Rutledge. Oh, dude, he's nasty and mean.
He's a mauler.
And I knew about Rutledge because, Pitt.
ACC.
Yeah, he mauls guys, man, every week in the ACC.
he mauled Pitt a couple times.
Yeah, he did. So he's a fun dude too. So there's a few guys on that line I think that are good. The guard class. I came into this and a lot of people said, when I just asked draft analysts that have watched it, said guard at the top and then it drops off. And I'm not going to say they're wrong, but my first impression is like, you sure? There might be some guards here, and obviously that'll be a need for the Steelers depending on what they do with Isaac Seumalo.
Certainly. Thank you, Nick, for joining me here on the Locked On Steelers podcast for our first ever 2-set show where we've had 2 people on working with here. I appreciate you making time to do the show after a very long day. We're about to go out and try to get dinner after this. Nick, let people know they can find you, follow you, get more of your work.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Farabaugh FB. You can check out the stuff PennLive.com/Steelers, and make sure to check out the Steelers Blitz on Penn Live, my YouTube channel.
Absolutely. He's Nick Farabaugh. I'm Chris Carter. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, wherever you get social media. My handle is always at Carter Critiques. You can read my work at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette by going to post-gazette.com, including my observations from Senior Bowl Day 2. Get them there. And as always, you can find this show, the Locked On Steelers podcast, wherever you get podcasts, either on YouTube or on your favorite podcasting apps. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of our daily episodes. Back here tomorrow, recapping the final day of Senior Bowl practices and any other updates in the Steelers search to fill out their coaching staff, all here on the Locked On Steelers podcast.